What's in our camera bag edition number 2? We're traveling so much that 2 bags carrying around all the time just doesn't cut it anymore. So we're trying to fit as much quality and as much gear into one single backpack. How we achieve that? Let's find out. Hey, my name is Damien from Monkey Pixels and welcome back to our second edition of What's in My Camera Bag. As I've already mentioned, we've been traveling so much this year. We're actually going on to 40 flights in this year alone. So carrying around a lot of equipment really is a pain in the ass. So what we try to do is to get as much quality and as much equipment into one single camera bag as possible. And I think we finally did a really good job in achieving that goal. So as for our main camera, nothing has changed. It's still the Canon C200, which is just a beast for about everything when it comes to video work. It shoots 4K RAW internally or a really good and really gradable MP4 150 megabits codec in 4K as well, which we used a lot lately for smaller client work, social media work, and it actually is perfect for what it is. We rigged it down to be as small as possible, and how did we achieve that? We got rid of the EVF because we rarely use it at all, and we left the side handle because it's really convenient. And instead of the original top handle, we replaced it by a small rig top handle that is attached to a small rig top plate. On top of this top plate, there also lies a monitor mount, which is really handy. And we also replaced the original 4-inch Canon monitor with a small HD 5-inch monitor. Unfortunately, we only have the HDMI version, which has this messy HDMI cable, but we will replace this with an SDI monitor in the near future. So this monitor actually gives you everything you need. It sits perfectly on top of your monitor, and the only thing you sacrifice is the touch to focus, which we rarely use anyway. So having a really brighter screen that you can actually see your footage in the sunlight definitely makes up for that. And here's the biggest change we made going into 2019, and that is the change of our main B camera. And that is the Canon EOS R. Watch the full review because this camera isn't perfect, but it kind of feels like the perfect camera for us right now. So watch our full review we did recently about this camera. So why do we love this camera as a B cam? Because it really matches the C200 perfectly. It's the perfect companion for taking Instagram pictures or behind the scene pictures. And it's so small and lightweight that it doesn't really take up a lot of space in your camera bag, and you can easily throw it onto a gimbal and don't have to mess with de-rigging your C200 and just use this as a second camera. Speaking of gimbals, as of right now, we're still using the Xeon Crane 2, which we really love. It pretty much does everything we want to do. It's a little bit clunky and you can't really stabilize the axis, so that kind of annoys me most of the time. But Xeon is coming out with a lot new gimbals, the Weeble Lab, which is actually on its way to us right now, as well as the Crane 3, which we are really excited about. So watch out for future videos because we might replace this with the newer models soon. So what's our third camera? And I really like drone shots as much as the next guy, but up until now I didn't really fly our drone that much. Why? Because we had the Mavic Pro 1 and the footage just doesn't really match the quality of our bigger cameras. But we recently switched to the Mavic Pro 2 and the new Hasselblad, all right. So the new Hasselblad camera, along with its 10-bit codec, it really matches our other footage perfectly well, and I'm really amazed by the quality. So as of right now, when we're in a cool location traveling, I can't really wait to get this camera in the air to shoot some aerial footage to mix into our edits. So our fourth and last camera we take on pretty much all our trips is the GoPro Hero 6. And what is the GoPro Hero 6 in right now? That is the Telcyn GoPro Dome. And what this thing does, it's really cheap, it's $15 or $20 on Amazon, but what it does is you can achieve these cool over underwater shots that we use a lot in our underwater videos. So alone for this, that thing is definitely worth it. It's definitely a bit clunky and big, so that is one thing you have to bear in mind, but I think it's worth it to take it everywhere. And since we're only using our GoPro for underwater shots 95% of the time, that's where our camera stays in all of the time, and we just use this. So one more thing we really don't leave the house without anymore is the Joby Gorilla Pod. I think it's called the 5K, and that is the strongest one out there. To an extent, it actually holds the C200. I wouldn't really recommend it, but if you really need it, it is possible. But we mostly use it with the EOS R. Before we used it with other 5D or even the 1DX a lot to shoot time lapses. Or even if you want to set up a YouTube studio somewhere, it's the perfect little tripod to film yourself, shoot time lapses, maybe even shoot a second angle for an interview. So this thing is really small and light, and we take it everywhere, and we don't even bring a big tripod along with us anymore. So now let's talk about our lenses. So our main lens we use for pretty much most of our stuff is the Canon 24mm 1.4, and that is the lens we are filming on right now. So this thing not only goes on the EOS R when we use it on the gimbal because it's lightweight, it has a great autofocus, and it also has a really fast aperture to get a bit of a blurry background even though you're filming at wide angle. But it also sticks to our C200 most of the time because it really is the perfect focal length on the C200 for these mid shots, sometimes even establishing shots if you just step out a little. And like I already said, fast aperture, low light, great autofocus. This is the lens we use the most. Our second lens is the 50mm 1.2 by Canon, which I'm not the biggest fan of because it doesn't have the highest quality and not the fastest autofocus. But when it comes to low light shots and portrait shots that we use a lot, so when we want to get closer to our subject, this is still the lens to go. So whenever the sun sets, this is the portrait lens we use for most of our photography as well as videography. Next up on the list is the 100mm macro lens. And everybody's really in love with this lens. And so are we, kind of, but we rarely use it. It still makes its place into our camera bag 100% of the time, because when you need a macro lens for these really close-up shots, maybe of an eyeball or maybe of a detail or a small animal, then this thing is just the perfect companion. And since it's not that big and it's not even that expensive, it goes into our camera bag all the time. Next lens up is the Canon 16-35 version 3 2.8L. And that is really great as an all-around lens for the C200. The C200 has a super 35mm sensor in it, which basically is a 1.5 crop sensor from our full-frame cameras. So that actually makes the 16-35 a perfect lens for run and gun shooting if you don't have the time to switch lenses. So 16mm is kind of wide, but 35 kind of really punches it in and is the equivalent of the 50mm on a full frame sensor. And it's really quiet, it's great autofocus, and it's perfect image quality. We also use it on the EOS R when shooting time lapses to get a really nice wide angle at 16mm. So the last lens we try to take everywhere is the Canon 24-70 2.8 version 2, and that is just a perfect all-around lens for especially photography. So if you're just walking around and shooting some Instagram pictures or maybe some small shots for social media, the 24-70 goes onto our EOS R, and that basically covers about everything. So if you really just want to leave your house or leave the hotel and shoot a little bit casually with that lens, it's perfect for it. So what's our workhorse when it comes to editing? So far, it's been the 2016 MacBook Pro, completely maxed out to its limit, and we didn't really have any problems with it, but it's not strong enough to edit our 4K RAW. So I'd rather have the newest model, the 2019 15-inch, but it runs about $5,000 in the configuration I want to have it, and so far that's not worth it, because we hardly have to actually edit everything on site when we are at a job, and when we do, it's mostly more social media work, so the MP4 codec runs fine with that. So now to the smaller stuff. So one thing that is a complete game changer, and we use it everywhere, is the Peak Design straps, because you can attach it to basically every camera. It just takes 2 seconds to get off your camera and then attach it onto your camera, because for video work I really love it because it gives you extra stability when you hang it from your neck and you just strap it out onto your camera, which I really love. For photography, I really hate having a strap attached to my camera because it keeps being in the way, getting in front of the lens or even getting in front of the viewfinder. So you can attach it in 2 seconds and you don't need to worry about anything else. So that thing is definitely a game changer. It goes with us everywhere. So as for memory cards, we have all our memory cards in a Bauer memory card case, and what I really love about this small case is that it fits all kind of memory cards. So it not only holds our CFast cards from Angelbird, and I can highly recommend Angelbird as a CFast brand when it comes to memory, because they have the best customer service I have ever experienced. For example, I had the older version, like way older version of these cards, and they failed on me once because the camera actually had a firmware update and it didn't recognize older cards anymore. I just posted that in a forum online and they reached out to me, gave me a call, replaced all these cards within a couple of days free of charge. So if that's not great customer service, I don't know what is. Like I was saying, again, it holds all kinds of memory cards, not only CFast cards, but also SD cards as well as micro SD cards. So all in all, you can fit 12 memory cards into this small case, which is really cool for traveling. So when it comes to hard drives, and we already made a video about that, how we travel and back up and store and manage our footage when we're traveling. So check that out, link is popping up somewhere. We're using just regular 2.5-inch SSD. This one is the 860 EVO 4 terabytes by Samsung. And the way we attach it to our computer is just by a USB-C to SATA cable. And that only wants you 15 bucks on Amazon, so we highly recommend this because it's actually cheaper and more flexible than buying these pre-made external storage units. And it also comes with a cool little case, so yeah, definitely a recommendation. As for our backup solution, we usually use the WD My Passports, and that is a really inexpensive 4 terabyte hard drive. It's definitely too slow to actually work off directly, but it copies all the files from our SSD onto the hard drive here. As for backup, again, check out the video we made about that. So as for microphone, for most of our run and gun stuff, we use the Rode VideoMic Plus because it's really cool, it's convenient, it's a small footprint, it's way smaller than our XLR shotgun mic, and this one fits the C200 as well as the Canon EOS R, so I think that one is pretty much the perfect microphone for run and gun situations. So now the really small accessories that we take onto every trip, which I kind of feel like are necessary, and that is just this little thingy here. I honestly don't really know the name of it, but I think you can imagine what it does. And especially when filming in the Abu Dhabi desert, we used this a lot because we actually had to use toothbrushes and the whatever it's called to get all the scent out of all our cameras. So whenever you have something on your sensor, because when we traveled to Cyprus, we didn't have this with us, and I had a hair stuck on the sensor of our 1DX, and it was pretty much in every shot, and I couldn't get it out of it. So one of these things, try to get it into your backpack at all times. So next thing up is just a regular HDMI cable. So why do we bring a regular HDMI cable? Because most hotel rooms already have a big LCD screen or like a big TV. You can hook up your laptop to it and you can use it as a second monitor for editing. And if you don't use it for editing, it's also pretty cool if you want to watch your own Netflix shows. So always recommend bringing an HDMI cable. So as for batteries, we bring a bunch of batteries with us, and that is just pretty self-explanatory. Then we also use a dongle for our MacBook because hashtag dongle life, and we have to attach all this stuff and all the memory card readers and all the accessories and hard drive to our computer, and not all of it is USB-C already. And the very last thing on our list is this little thing. It's called fairy lights, and we bring them everywhere because sometimes they're really handy if you kind of want to have a special lighting and a special moody shot for photography or for video. So recommend bringing one of these along. Oh, actually it wasn't the last thing. What we also bring is these pouches. So we usually bring at least one of these pouches. It fits one lens, usually the 24 or the 50mm. So that is the perfect run and gun setup for me when I'm doing photography as well as doing videography, because I usually have the 24mm on the camera and the 50mm attached to my belt. So I can easily switch them out, so I have both focal lengths covering pretty much everything I need. So this one is actually from a Sigma lens I bought a couple years ago, and it still works, but I attached an Amazon link down below for a company that actually produces pouches specifically for your camera lenses that you can attach to either your belt, or it actually has a belt where you can attach all of these together and just, unstrap, which is kind of cool. So another thing I highly recommend bringing with you on every shoot is reusable cable ties, because you never know when they come in handy. We use them to lock up the axis of our gimbal or attach some other stuff to it, even if it's just our headphones that are just dangling off our backpack or anything, so that comes in really, really handy. Speaking of our backpack, nothing has changed when it comes to our backpack department, and that is still the Lowepro Protectic 450AW, which is really cool. It has enough space to fit all that equipment, and the cool thing is that it has so many options to attach stuff to it that are just necessary and a game changer. For example, this has this tripod mount on top, or it has some pouches you can put in your batteries, or you can put in some cables, or all that kind of stuff. And with the cable ties I just mentioned, you can virtually attach anything to it. So the limits are pretty much endless. And we use this a lot because obviously all of this doesn't fit inside the backpack. So all the camera gear is inside, but we have the gimbal in front of it. We also have the Joby Gorilla Pod just attached to the outside. And again, going on to 40 flights this year, we never had a problem. It always fit in the overhead department, and they always let us through with it, which is kind of cool. So, and that's about it. That's all the equipment we bring for most of our travels, and I think we have the best of both worlds. We have a perfect camera for photography. We also have this monster of a 4K RAW machine if we need it. We have every focal length is covered. We have a drone, a gimbal, a small tripod, extra batteries, a GoPro, hard drives, and all that fits into one backpack. So that is definitely one headache less for us. And if you may wonder, what about all the chargers and all the cables? And here's the thing with my philosophy. If you're traveling abroad or somewhere where you don't need an extra bag, like for your clothes or anything, then you won't need all these chargers anyway, because especially with our Canon equipment, these batteries last a really long time. And if I run out of battery power, chances are I'm there for so long that I need a lot of different clothes anyway. So all the chargers and extra cables goes into our checked bag or our other carry-on suitcase for clothes. So if you're interested in all that kind of equipment, I linked everything below, so with links to Amazon, so you can check them out yourself or even buy them directly if you wanted to. And now I'm really curious as to your opinion, so let us know in the comments below. Do we have everything covered? What did we miss? Or is this pretty much the perfect setup for traveling for professional film gear? Because I think we're really, really close to it. So, my name is Damien Cooper, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See you on the next one.